Kwakhanya, Max, ndingumXhosa, but at the same time, I am also African American. My dad was born in the US. Mama was born Apa, eMzansi, eKapa, umXhosa mama. So that side of the family is Xhosa. I am a 19, soon to be 20-year-old student studying sociology, politics, and social development. Extremely passionate about social justice and equity. Extremely passionate and in love with South Africa and the continent of Africa. I truly believe that our faith can't be separated from the work of bringing people to a place where there is transformation and there's true tangible equity and justice, like I said. So I was born na 5th of December 2001. I'm a 2000. I was born in Cape Town. And the initial plan was to be born in the US. Funnily enough, that was the plan that they had, to get me in proximity with that side of citizenship on that side of the world, there by the global north, just because money and work was looking better that side. But to my mom, just had something in her spirit that said, no, Danam has to be born in Cape Town. She has to be born around my family, which I think was also something that God was a part of. There was a lot of intentionality there that she wasn't even aware of, that's made me who I am in terms of being close to South Africa, close to Black people, close to Xhosa-speaking Black people, close to the context that comes with that and comes with our history, Apa eMzansi. So that's where and when I was born. And I think that had I am certain that had a major role in informing the person that I am now and informing the interests that I have now and the passions that I have now and the posture of my heart towards justice. I think I'm a bit of, not an anomaly, like special, but it's that thing of I'm a combination and a melting pot of two different types of Blackness. And realistically, Blackness is Blackness, but at the same time, we're dealing with Africans in the diaspora, which is also Pagati inside me. Then we're also dealing with Indigenous Africans, Apa eMzansi, who are not experiencing the fullness of the freedoms they were promised. So it's oppression from different sides of the story, and it's all in me. So I think being that, and then also having parents who were very intentional about conscientizing me to that and conscientizing me to both sides. Like it's not, I was trained to care about African American history and South African Black people, Indigenous history, all the same. So I think that amalgamation of political awareness in my mind does a lot to me and makes me dream and pushes me. And obviously there's weight and there's heaviness to it. But I think that, those things have been a catalyst for the way that I think and the way that I want to see this nation, this continent, change and transform for Abantu. On the side of being a South African Black person, there's that thing of we are closer to our origin, right? Like naturally ties. But then at the same time, even while I was visiting family in the States this year, I realized that these are not a people who are lost. They are people who had to redeem their cultures in a context where they were forced to assimilate to. So the African American culture of Ebonics and the language and the colonial terms that they use and the style and everything, that isn't a lost African people that's a people just trying to affirm themselves and affirm their identity still in a place where they were told, you're dispossessed here. I don't know if that makes sense, but like that difference in one had to create a new sense of self, and then the other is still trying to affirm the sense of self in South Africa, where we're still not seen and we're still not heard, but singawa lapa. So I think those are the tensions that I'm more cognizant of now, especially having spent time with family that side and been in that space. So I think there's something above the tensions that have the proclivity of separating us. There's so much to be learned from Africans in the diaspora, Africans APA. Like there's so much that we can learn and gain and actually uplift each other with from our experiences. They're the same, but different, you know? So just genuinely, I'm at 2000, right? We're not talking too far away from 1994. So I think, hey, God me help me. I think the term, born freeze, right? We were born after the transition, and that was supposed to be a beautiful thing. The born free generation was supposed to be the symbol of, okay, we've crossed over and now we're having a generation of young people who are being brought into this space, who are going to continue the narrative and trajectory of emancipation, of freedom, of liberation. But I don't think that was the case. If anything, even the studies that we were doing this year in social development, we were going into the born free case scenario, and how actually born free has become synonymous with the lost generation because of how we were not a part of apartheid, right? We weren't a part of the struggle or the fight for freedom, but still on the other side of it, we are the recipients of the brokenness that came from that time, and the lack of correction that was supposed to happen in the transition, during the transition. So I think the political and social importance of being born as AMA 2000 is the fact that we're free, but we're not liberated as of yet. And so the job of liberation is actually on the born frees, which is hectic. Because you would think, well, okay, surely our elders, they did the things, but realistically, they did the things with what they knew. But with what we know now, being a young people who are in a context that's extremely globalized, and we have access to knowledge and access to tech and access to reimagination sociologically and politically and economically, if we don't do something as AMA born frees, then really, then what, really? In the beginning of my life, obviously, my parents were not trying to make me political from the jump. Although they were very, very jonga, social awareness, my fighters. My mom is a nurse and my dad was working in IT as a black man in IT, in a space that was permeated with mainly white men, right? And so mama was also deep within the health sector and mainly focusing on the HIV and the AIDS, and specializing in that area. So she was exposed, and Nukulele as well. So she was constantly exposed to poverty and how it has a face, and the face is not white, and all of those dynamics that come into play, and health as well, how that comes into play with the racism too. But they weren't trying to indoctrinate me from very young, but at the same time, the conversations picked up, I think, around when I was 10, 11, 12. And in 2012, obviously, siyayazi Marikana happened. The Marikana massacre happened. And that was actually the turning point, I think, for me as a young person, when I realized, wow, okay, there's violence happening that looks like genocidal violence that was supposed to be done away with in the transition, but it's still going on and it's affecting Black people. What does that mean? What does that mean in 2012? What does that mean for me as an 11-year-old at that time? What does that mean then for my family members who are in these positions and who are in the sector where they're being looked down upon because of where they come from, because of history, because of politics, and how does that affect me? So I think the conversations that were happening at that time were beginning to mold my brain. And I was becoming more and more sensitized to the fact that in every space that you look, in every sector that you look, if you're not interrogating injustice, you're not looking. You're not looking. There's a numbness you have to tend to. There's something that you have to deal with because it really is everywhere. And I think that's the burden of it. You realize, my God, it really is everywhere, which is heavy. But at the same time, I think then the mandate is solidified even more to go out and make disciples of the nations. It's because it's everywhere, and healing is needed everywhere, and voices are needed everywhere. So I think the political and social, violences and disruptions that were happening in that time from 2001 up until now, especially Marikana was a turning point for me. That's when I realized, okay, there's state coloniality happening here. There's this liberated nation that's still very much in the deepest depths of colonial violence, of just yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm still in the process of embracing my origin or origins and the story that's there. Only because I think when God does something in your heart and sets a flame in your heart for particular people, and in my case, he definitely has. I know for a fact that my work needs to be in South Africa. My work needs to be in Africa. And God revealed that to me. But I think I was wrestling with that a lot, because then I was asking myself the question of, am I then neglecting a side of myself in pledging allegiance or giving loyalty to only this fraction or this element of who I am? And so embracing self is always going to be, it's always going to be a tension. It's always going to be a constant thing of, okay, am I recognizing that I can be, in my case, that I can be both things at the same time, and that it's okay for me to still be dedicated to this particular context? Because although I am an amalgamation of two different nationalities and two different cultures and two different ways of expressing Blackness, I am still only one person. And I actually cannot be in two places at the same time. And there's a reason for that. There's a God reason behind that as well. And so I think the journey of embracing my identity and actually allowing God to use my identity in this context has been difficult. It's been trying. But at the same time, it's been so liberating as well, because I feel God has also called us in so many ways, not even just in terms of citizenship and nationality, but in our gifting, in our skill set, in our we're called to be dynamic. Like, I think he's made us a people where there's more than one thing to you that makes you powerful and makes you brilliant and makes you the vessel that he needs to use in a context, in a situation, for a people at a certain time. So I think also just the freedom that comes with, I am all of these things at the same time, is so beautiful. It is so liberating. It is so encouraging. So as much as it's been a bit of a battle in terms of ndingubani, nditini, andilapha, how do I speak? How do I present myself in this way? It's also the knowing that I'm called to being a dynamic being, and God loves that, and God was intentional with that as well. It wasn't a mistake.